Welcome to another edition of the channel's Mailbag. So what is Mailbag? Well, Mailbag is the part of the channel that you guys actually control. It's based on comments, questions, general feedback that you guys leave either on the YouTube channel, the website, or through one of my social media feeds. Mailbag contains what I think the answer is, what I think my view of the comment is, or sometimes, I just throw it out to the wider audience and say, what do you guys think? That's what Mailbag is. So let's get in to the first mailbag of this session. Remember, like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Go over to Instagram and follow me there. Go over to Facebook, follow me there. That's where the normal notices are. And consider becoming a Patreon. Next comment or question comes from Nelson Click. And this is in response to another one bites the dust. GAK is closed for business. An SMR I did in March 2025. Nelson writes, I don't know what it's like in the UK, but I've noticed a decline in all the music gear shops in the US. There used to be professionalism and skill in selling music gear, and music shops were good hangouts that had bulletin boards for posting music job vacancies, buying sheet music, etc. Now the only remaining shops left in my town is a single corporate mass retailer, in brackets Guitar Centre, that feels like Walmart, and even those are going downhill, in my view, because they're being run by musicians that always looked haggard because they're hungover. They haven't slept, and to be honest, some couldn't care less if you bought something or not. I'd rather research online than buy direct from the manufacturer than go to these shops. This is a really good piece, and what I should say is between me doing the SMR and me recording this, which is about 3 months, I think I did this towards the end. Well, it was in April. I wrote this response, and obviously I'm recording this in June, so 2.5 months roughly. Another big retailer in the UK has gone bust, and that retailer is called PMT. That had about 16 shops in the UK, mainly geared towards guitar and guitar-based stuff, if I'm honest. Not really keyboards, but they have gone bust. And just like GAK, Gear for Music has swooped in and bought the stock, and it's bought the trading name, but hasn't bought the liabilities. So GAK was exactly the same. Gear for Music did that. And funny enough, those of you who remember Studio Spares, when they went belly up last year, Gear for Music did exactly the same there. There seems to be a trend. These music shops are going bust, and Gear for Music is stepping in. So anyway, let me read what I said. Back in the late 80s and through the 90s, there were a series of great music shops that either catered to various facets, and they catered for the various facets of the music industry. When personally I bought my first keyboard, which was in the late 80s, there was a great little shop called City Music, and it was a great little shop, and it was sort of like hidden in the corner of the mall in Uxbridge. And, you wouldn't really take too much notice of it, to be honest, if you didn't know what it was. But they had 3 shops. There's the one in the mall in Uxbridge, which I said, but the other 2. And while the other 2 were more pianos and organs, the third shop was the one that was really interesting one, because that was where the more high-tech stuff, synths and musical equipment were being sold from. It was a little bit of a hike from where I lived. The Uxbridge one was closer to me. It was a short bus ride or a short car ride, but the one you really wanted to go to was a little bit further. It was a little bit further to get to. Anyway, living in London, there were many places to hang out. The classic Denmark Street area, which you probably know if you've ever done any sort of research on some of the classic UK rock bands, they all hung out in the Denmark area of London. There was a couple of really classic shops in that area. And then there was sort of some more specific shops as you came out. And I think you've heard me talk about Project Music in the past. I loved Project Music. It was kind of exactly what Nelson describes. It was the sort of shop you went and hung out in. It was very high tech. It was very synthesizer, recording orientated, but they didn't care if you just went in there and spent a few hours, drunk a cup of coffee, talked to the staff, because they knew eventually they're going to get a sale out of you. Now, I now live on the south coast of the UK, as many people know, and to be honest, I have two fairly sizable and enthusiastic shops that do the full range near, but they are both a drive. So I can't get to them relatively easily without a car. But the smaller shops, they just are disappearing. They just can't afford to hold a diverse product range that the modern consumer expects, that you can see on a website. And it's a shame because these smaller operations tend to be where the knowledge base is. They have knowledgeable musicians, knowledgeable technicians. These are the guys, unfortunately, that now are retiring and dying. And there's no easy way to put it. They are. People are getting old and they die. And there's no money in this business. The next generation are not coming through. Now, somebody said, I watched the video the other day, and somebody turned around and said, the margin in retail is, you expect on a normal be making about 50% margin because that covers your overheads and everything else. But in the music industry, because of the way that websites are driving down cost, you're not getting that level of margin. So shops are not making enough money. And I might, if I can remember at the end of this, tell you the anecdote of a PMT employee. Now, a massive shift, as you say, the hangouts where you meet other musicians and find what was going on. They just don't exist anymore. I mean, when I was growing up, we used to have a youth club, right? Whatever they are in other parts of the world, basically where as a teenager you could go and hang out. If you were in a band, they had practice spaces. If you were in bands, quite often if you were practicing there, other bands would come down just to say hi, what you're doing, how your gig's going, all that sort of thing. Do you want to support us? Can we support you? That type of thing if you're doing a gig. Don't exist anymore. I've always thought, personally, if I won the lottery and, won a serious amount of money where I just didn't care whether it made a profit or not, then, you know what, I would open a place just like that. Because if I won the lottery, I wouldn't care about whether it made money. I would open it to service the local musicians. Have a place they can hang, maybe have some gear in it. Have some rehearsal space. Maybe if I hadn't won enough money, put a recording studio in there. Just something that would be the sort of place that people would want to go and hang out. Now Nelson wrote back and said, you know what, I like the idea of the smaller shop idea, and if I had a coffee and a couple of tables, you know what, I'm there, even though I'm probably living on the other side of the pond. Although they are not music shops, there are pawn shops in most towns, and there's joy in discovering what music gear they have. You never know what you might find. That's very true. You never know what you might find. We have a couple of different types of shops. So you have the kind of the traditional pawn shops in the UK, and then you have kind of shops that are about cash converting. So you can go and sell your musical instruments, and you can then people can then go and buy it, and obviously they put a markup on it. And you can sometimes you can get lucky. I think in America you call them thrift stores, but these are stores where you can basically just go and sell your old musical equipment. You get some money for it, and then somebody else can come and buy it. And you've got no idea what state of play is when you buy it, but you might get something that's really good. So you might find, if you're lucky, an old drum machine, an old Roland with a missing key, or maybe an old Korg missing the power supply. You just never know. But it's always worth having, if you've got 10 minutes and you've got one of these places close to you. I actually have two. not very far. One's kind of just on the outskirts of walking distance. One is a little hop in a car. But both of them, if I ever get time or in that area, I always sort of go and put my nose around it just to see what's going on. Now I have bought, I'll be honest with you, I have bought some stuff in one of these kind of cash conversion type stores, and I have to be honest and say, I'm looking over there because I can see one of the pieces of equipment sitting in the racks. So, it has worked out for me. Sadly, unfortunately, the whole idea of the coffee shop or the hangout costs money. It's not just, running the place. You've got the rent, you've got the rates, you've got the overheads of power. And in the UK, power is incredibly expensive at the moment because there's two or so I was going to say two, but successive governments, not just the last lot and this lot, but the lot before them, basically sat on the fence on things like nuclear. And I'm not going to go into the whole nuclear debate, but they sat on the fence. So, we're now coming to the point of view where we're shutting down our kind of nuclear, what do they call it, baseload generation, and starting to sort of worry about things. And then we're really beholden to the international, what do they call it, the cost, the price of a barrel of oil, because it dictates the price of gas, and we're running our our estate effectively on gas. But that's a different story. So, if you guys want to sponsor me on Patreon and we can build that up, and you guys want to watch a lot more of this channel, then, maybe there might be some money left in the coffers to do something like that. But at the moment, unfortunately, you don't make any money from running a YouTube channel. You don't make any money at all from running the YouTube channel. It just about covers its own costs. Now, I was going to say about the anecdote on PMT. Yeah, one of the guys from PMT was telling me that, bearing in mind he's working on minimum wage, and minimum wage in the UK is about £12.50, I think. Can't remember, but £12.50 an hour. And there was a particular amplifier this guy wanted. The bloke spent about an hour with the customer. Customer bought it. There was about £20 profit. So once you take out his hours worth of time, which was £12.50, and the on cost, which would add another pound onto that's £13.50, you're talking about £5 worth of profit, and that will probably be consumed with overhead. So actually, you made no money on that sale, and yet you had a member of staff spending an hour with the person. And that is the state of retail, definitely in the UK.